Welcome to the What Happened Wrestling with Story podcast, where we talk about, well, what happened on tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw from July 29th, 2024, the go-home episode before the SummerSlam of 2024. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to make our way through it as quick as we can and get you guys all caught up on what happened and what you missed. It was a pretty solid episode, I would say, overall. I really enjoyed it. I thought that, I would say, it suffered from a little bit of the usual Raw conundrum of being slightly too long, as always. But aside from that, I think everything in it was really about moving story forward. There was really good focus on getting us to the show this weekend, and I think they did a great job setting us up, especially considering how sort of tied their hands were. The problem with go-home shows is always the same thing, which is that so much of the card is already set. So how do you make the show feel like it matters knowing that the card is already set up? It's one thing if you're sort of booking on the fly and you don't quite exactly know what is going to be what and where is going to be where and how are we going to do all this stuff. But the thing is this card is set in stone. It's not moving. It's not changing. We already have, I think, 6 matches lined up. So, we're not changing anything. All we're doing right now is just making sure to reiterate all of the matches, litigate what we need to litigate to make it clear what the stakes are and where we're going, and just sort of get us ready for the actual event. And so it's a weird bit of a challenge. I think nowhere was that more prevalent of an issue than with the opening segment. Our opening segment saw Seth Rollins come out in a ridiculous shirt, as is his wont. As a referee, it was a flowing referee shirt that would not look out of place in Beetlejuice. And he came out, he called out CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, and then proceeded to essentially rile everybody up while also saying you can't touch each other. And what you got out of this segment was, I suppose he was explaining what the rules were, but his rules were I'm not going to have rules. Unless I have rules, when I'm going to have rules, when I'm not going to, but I'm not going to have rules unless I want to have rules, in which case then I have rules. So what are you going to do about it? And the segment ended up feeling sort of very herky-jerky. The audience wasn't super clear on what they were supposed to do, which is a funny thing to say because obviously they're supposed to be chanting for CM Punk. Even to the point where CM Punk had to get them to start chanting his name. He had to sort of nudge them to get them to do it. I think, it's interesting because, we've now seen versions of what they did in this segment multiple times. And while the segment was still good and the segment had some great moments in it, and I think, it did a good job setting up the match, it also really suffered pretty heartily from just not being able to move forward. We need to have a sense that the show is actually progressing us somewhere. And because they had this little plot device that the guys can't touch each other or Seth, instead what you had is you had them all sort of at a fever pitch of promoing, but without anywhere to go from there. And the thing is we've already seen them do the fever pitch promo. In fact, we've been watching it for nigh 6 months, 8 months at this point. So we needed them to escalate. And by nature of being told they can't escalate, what we got instead was a little bit of what we in the business like to call a wet fart. And that was a little unfortunate because that is, I think, even though it's not a title match, even though it's not going to be the main event on the card, it is certainly from an emotional standpoint and from an engagement standpoint, I think it is probably the biggest draw for the card. It's the thing that people have been waiting for the longest. It's the thing people are most invested in. And I think, you could have had it escalate to Contact and gotten away with it. I think it probably would have been okay. We came out of that into a Judgment Day backstage segment where we found the clubhouse to be completely wrecked, and they were devastated. which I find interesting because clearly the clubhouse just gets set up every time they move to a new arena. So I don't know why they would be so upset that this clubhouse that was set up like 20 minutes ago has somehow been wrecked. And what does that mean? They blame it all, of course, on Liv Morgan, who has gone mad with her passions that have been pushed away so grievously by Dominic Mysterio and his heartless behavior last week. And then, a little inexplicably, their solution to this is to send Carlito to go off and set matches to get revenge, but not against Liv Morgan. Instead, she's to go set a match where he's going to go take on Sami Zayn, I guess. It's unclear. It's a little unclear. It was a little bit of a weird bit. That being said, he was very upset about his PS5 getting destroyed, which was cute. It was a cute bit. And Carlito does remain delightful. And there's a lot of like, why is he here? Which is, a good bit. It works out. It's fun. We come out of that to the Alpha Academy coming back, coming to the ring, and then we get another Judgment Day backstage before the Alpha Academy can get to their match, wherein we find out that actually... no, I'm sorry. We get another backstage. It's still like a little bit more of like everybody's in everyone, we have Damien comes back and sees that everything's a mess, and he's essentially saying that he doesn't think it's a good idea for Finn Balor to have his match with Gunther tonight alone. And Sami and Finn Balor is like, I can do this alone. I've fought him before. I can fight him again. And he's really like, you guys all think you can be tough and do it alone. Why can't I be tough and do it alone? He's acting a little suspicious to me. So I think we're going to find out that whatever happened to the backstage area, I think whatever's been going on, I do think we're going to find out that Finn had something to do with it. I know some people are theorizing we're going to find out that Dom had something to do with it. But personally for me, I still think Finn is sort of the odd man out amongst everybody. Like he is the villain while everybody else is slowly turning face. So I think we're actually going to see Finn be the one who is in cahoots with Liv Morgan. And not just because I like saying the word cahoots. However, I do. So I am going to say it one more time. Cahoots. Back out in the ring, we have the Creeds we have the Alpha Academy take on the Creed brothers. They have a pretty solid match. We get to see Otis being delightful as he does. Eventually, they all team up. They get the Creeds get the win. Then they all team up to take on Otis, which leads to everybody trying to stop him and failing. And eventually, suddenly the lights go out and the Wyatt Six come out. And this is a big moment. This is actually a much bigger moment than I'm probably making it sound. But the Wyatt Six come out and they take their masks off. It's everybody but Uncle Howdy. They all come up on stage. They all pop off their masks, which is, again, I've talked about this before, but is a huge deal because that means that they're going to wrestle as themselves without the stupid masks on. It means we're actually going to be able to have legitimate, proper wrestling matches. It's not just going to be we're magical beings. It's going to be very grounded. It's going to be very much in the same spirit as the Wyatt family was. And it was great. They really had they hit some pretty gnarly moves. Chad Gable manages to escape, and then on his way back to backstage to get away from everybody, he is cornered by a cackling Uncle Howdy, but manages to escape again because despite Uncle Howdy's genius abilities, he is not so good at blocking a gigantic open walkway. He needs to work on that. Then we go backstage once again to the Judgment Day, which you might be noticing a trend. There is a ton of Judgment Day this week. They really went hard on the Judgment Day, where we find out that Carlito did in fact get a match with Sami Zayn. However, he arranged it to be with Dominic by mistake. And then also we set up that he has somehow gotten a match with Jey Uso as well, which is a little bit unclear again. But now Dom is going to have to go handle Sami Zayn, which Mommy is sure he can do. and Dominic is a little less sure, but it's going to be fine. It's a little bit more of the like, oops, we're seeing all the miscommunications and we're seeing the fraying amongst everybody in the Judgment Day as we're working towards whatever's going to happen this weekend, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say is going to be everybody breaking up, or at least a new order being founded. Not a new world order, because that would be crazy talk. Meanwhile, back in the ring, Sheamus and Bronson Reed have yet another one of these pointless Bronson Reed matches, which is now like the fourth or fifth one that is in some different configuration. This time it's Sheamus and Bronson Reed. They have a fine match. It's not a great match. It is a fine match that gets interrupted by Pete Dunne with a shillelagh. He is doing his absolute finest David Finlay impression when he shillelaghs Sheamus right upside the head and knocks him unconscious. And Bronson Reed hits him with his finishing move and gets the win. And this Pete Dunne story is just going to keep going for a while. Look, I'm really glad they're doing Pete Dunne stuff over on NXT as well. So like, I'm really glad to see Pete Dunne get so much to do, because I think Pete Dunne is incredibly talented, and I'm glad to see it. Again, I wish they were giving him something a little more grounded and a little less arch, because right now it's very, very arch. Again, he's using a shillelagh, which is very mid-2000s WWE to me. Maybe that's just me, though. Maybe I'm just reading into it too much. Then we get a really, really fire Damien Priest filmed promo. This is Damien Priest talking about how Gunther called him street trash, but how, as a Puerto Rican kid growing up on the streets, the idea that he's being called street trash is actually giving him strength, and that he'd rather be street trash than to be what Gunther is, which is essentially Euro trash. It's a great promo. It's another, we get over the course of the night, we get, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like 4 of these, maybe, of these sort of filmed promos. And I like them a lot. They've been doing more and more of them as we've gone over the past few weeks. I think what they let them do is it lets some of the less strong, less clearly defined as heel or face characters cut promos without having to deal with the most obnoxious thing in the world, which is the audience shouting what. So because they're pre-filmed, they get to control the tempo and the pacing, and also they get to do multiple takes, so that by the time we're actually seeing it, we're seeing something that's really well put together and that really works really well on its own. So I think it's clearly a direction that the WWE is going in that I'm a big fan of. I really like them. And I would highly recommend they keep doing them. We get Jey Uso coming to the ring, which is interrupted by a Braun Breaker filmed promo, which yet again, to the same point, Braun Breaker, who I think is not super strong on the mic, but in this film promo is fabulous. Just a really great promo that, weirdly, I will say, is also sort of like a backhanded promo for Sami Zayn's comedy show that he's doing, which is weird, which is a weird thing to do in a promo, bashing the guy. So he's bashing Sami Zayn for doing a comedy show, which you can buy tickets for right here. It's a weird angle to take, but Bron is fantastic in it. He's really he comes off like a legitimate threat. He comes off like a legitimate badass. He doesn't mince words. If he was that good in the ring with promos, we would be talking about a different guy. But right now, I don't think he has the same skill set that he does when he's cutting the promo that's been edited for him. So again, I think it's a really great use of resources to do promos that way. Then we get our Jey Uso versus Carlito match, which is fine. Eventually, you're never going to guess what happens. The Judgment Day gets involved, which then leads to good old Sami Zayn coming out for a save. Good, solid match. A little bit slow motiony, like not a great use of either guy. Could be better, but again, I think solid for both of them. Then we get a backstage segment with Zelena Vega. it's interesting, like, having talked about all these film promos, when you see Zelena Vega cut a promo, damn, she's good. Like, she just goes, like, she's doing, it's an interview promo, so it's a little bit, and it's a backstage promo, so she isn't dealing with the crowd per se, but she is just fire on a microphone. Like, she's so good at it. Really convincing, really just believes in herself and believes in what she's saying. That girl is incredibly talented, and I'm so glad that they're starting to see that now. In the midst of her doing it, she's essentially calling out Zoe Stark, Shayna Basler, and Sonia Deville, who oblige and come and break her arm, quote unquote, and lay her out until she is saved by referees. And then we call that a day. Then we get another backstage segment. There's a lot of backstage segments this week, which is Miz announcing that he is hosting SummerSlam in his hometown of Cleveland, where he's interrupted by R-Truth, who is confused as to how he's going to host SummerSlam in his house, because how big is his house? And very good. Very, very good bunch of jokes. A great use of R-Truth and a great use of Miz. And it's good to see Miz getting something to do, and I'm sure he's going to be co-hosting with R-Truth, which means it will be hilarious. And then comes our worst segment of the episode, the Xavier Woods versus Karion Kross, the continuation of the story that will not end. Again, like, I love me some New Day. They are so good and so talented and have just been consistently wasted. And never before have they been so wasted as they are on this Karion Kross Final Testament storyline. Just Final Testament just is not over. They are not interesting. They're not being used well. I don't get it. I don't know whose naked pictures they have in their wallets, that they're just continuing to be used relatively prominently on the show while not delivering, but they continue to just not deliver and to make everybody that they work with look worse, which I'm pretty sure is not the job. Pretty sure is in fact the opposite of the job. We get a quick backstage segment of Jesse Ventura showing up, which is, again, a big deal. Shows how much things have changed in the WWE, because it has been years since that guy has been there. But yeah, so Jesse Ventura showed up to come say hi to everybody. It was very nice. It was a nice little quick little segment. Then we get Sami Zayn, and again, to use the difference between these film segments and these live backstage segments, God, Sami Zayn is just amazing on the mic. He just really, he's engaging. He's he gets across his message, and the audience is just enraptured with him. And you see, that is the difference between him and everybody else who got the filmed promos this week, is just how good he is and how capable he is of making the audience eat out of his hand. And he cuts his promo about how not scared he is of Bron Breakker and how he's looking forward to kicking the crap out of Dominic Mysterio a little bit later. And then he comes off of that promo straight into walking out to his music, which is always, it's one of those fun little tricks that they now seem to overuse a little bit too much. Then we get a film promo from Liv Morgan, and once again, fire promo, literally, because she is burning all of the things that she, quote-unquote, got from Dom Mysterio, although one has to suspect that she stole most of them. And essentially, it's her saying that she's going to finish her revenge tour and take out on Mommy. And, it really... She's really come a long way, and it's really impressive to watch just how engaging she is and how much she has going for her. And I do really hope that she gets to keep the title. I think there's more to be done with her if she keeps the title than if she loses it. So hopefully she's going to get to keep the title, and we get to either extend the feud with her and Dom and Mommy, or move on to something else. I think the title has been a bit of a secondary focus of the entire story, and it's probably time that got shifted a bit. But aside from that, I think it was, I think it's pretty great. So then we get Sami Zayn versus Dom Mysterio, and this is a great match. Dom is really good in the ring. I think he doesn't get a lot of credit because he's such a character and because he's, Dominic Mysterio. But the two of them they have a great, really solid match until the Judgment Day, of course, run in on Sami, who is ultimately then saved by Jey Uso. But in the process of being saved by Jey Uso, he gets a run-in by Braun Breaker, who goes to spear Sami, but instead Sami blocks it and manages to land an exploder in the corner. And as he's about to land the haluva kick, good old Braun Breaker makes a run for it, and then goes to try one more time to spear Sami, and Sami manages to land another super kick. And it's a great segment. It's really good, and it does this thing where, like we're going into the show expecting Sami to get his ass kicked, and it actually recalibrated us a little bit. Not so sure. Then Michael Cole introduces yet another of the Wyatt Six backstage segments, and weirdly, again, another content-free segment. This one about Dexter Lumis. Just a lot of screeching and distorted voices, and not a lot of actual content or explanation. Or, I feel like these past two have been a little bit of a letdown. And by a little bit, I mean a bit of a letdown. They've really like set the bar so high with the Uncle Howdy and then with the Eric Rowan ones. And now just to do two in a row that were essentially just like, whoa, look how spooky we are, without actually moving story forward or character forward. It feels like, sloppy work, which is disappointing. Followed by Chad Gable going to Adam Pearce to explain that he has, figured out who the rest of the Wyatt Six are. Again, these are not funny. This is not a funny bit. This is not like, it minimizes them. It minimizes the situation. It's, you're essentially, when you're doing that bit, what you're doing is you're taking something that should be serious and threatening and making it dopey. While attempting to make Chad Gable dopey, it's actually having the opposite effect, and it's making the story itself dopey, right? Because you're sort of saying, like, why would he not know this? Why is this going on? And even though, like, Pearce made a point of, like, yeah, I know who they are, they're all under contract to me. Well, then why were they allowed to massacre everybody backstage and nothing was done? You're just sort of putting a fine point on these, like, weird holes in the logic by doing it. In any event, Chad Gable does challenge them to a three-man match next week on Raw. So we are setting up what is going to be the first actual in-ring match for the Wyatt Six, which I think is really cool. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see what happens, and I think it's gonna be great that we're moving the story along. I'm sort of surprised they didn't make a match for SummerSlam. Like, it does feel like a debut you'd want to do at a PLE, but I guess we're gonna get it on Raw instead. Then we get a weird sort of hybrid segment. This was like a live-ish, semi-filmed segment where Rhea calls out Liv Morgan. But rather than the other ones that have like a very clearly filmed and edited feel to it, this one was shot on the same cameras that they shoot the live stuff on. It was shot in the wrecked clubhouse, so it had like a slightly more immediate feel to it than the other ones did. It had like a slightly less produced feel to it, but it was still clearly filmed, and had what might be my favorite joke of the night, which is where Rhea was like, after I broke your arm, and then after you broke my arm, touche, by the way, which is just a delightful little moment. We came out of that to a Lyra, Valkyria, Carter, and Chase versus Sonia Deville, Zoe Stark, and Shayna Basler match. This was, again, a solid match. We've talked about this before. It's a solid match. I wish everybody had a little more personality to them. Deville, Stark, and Basler get the win, and as they're standing over them, Damage Control makes a run-in and whiffs the crap out of them. And Damage Control strikes a pose, and now we're going to get the Damage Control versus Deville, Stark, and Basler, who definitely should have some kind of name. It's a little weird that they don't have some kind of name, but it definitely feels like they should. We get one final filmed promo for the night. This one is Gunther hanging out in the bleachers before the show started, and it is terrific. Just a terrific bit where he's talking about how Damien Priest had a chance to be a bigger man and give up his title, but instead he chose violence because that's the type of scumbag that he is. And he goes on to shit talk Finn Balor and how Finn Balor can't get the job done either, and how all these guys, had a lot of potential, but then they went and joined the Judgment Day, and just a really solid promo. I would argue that Gunther might be the one guy that doesn't need to be doing these as film promos, that he can actually cut the promo in the ring. But you are fighting, when you're fighting the audience chanting what after every sentence, it's massively hard to cut a good promo. On top of all the challenges of just, talking extemporaneously that we all have. So, I think it's probably a smart move to do these promos this way. And it also, it's copying the MMA thing, like MMA videos. MMA does this style, so there's a little bit of like, it gives it that sort of shoot feeling that we've gotten used to from seeing from other sports, which I suppose is why they do that. Then we get one more Damage Control backstage where they talk about how they're going to be dominant and that they're going after Deville, Stark, and Basler, and that they're back and ready to kill. Good, solid segment. Nothing too remarkable, though. Then we get one final Judgment Day backstage, which marks, like, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, I think like 5 or 6 Judgment Day backstages over the course of these 3 hours. Where essentially they all agree that after SummerSlam they're going to get all of their shit together. But tonight Finn Balor is going to go it alone, just like each of them was going to go it alone for their individual matches at SummerSlam. And then we get a banger of a match between Finn Balor and Gunther. The main event is really good. The audience is super into it. They do a fantastic job. Just a really solid wrestling match. And it's a reminder that, like, Finn Balor is one of the best in the world. I think we don't get to see it a lot because he's used as, either in tag team wrestling or as sort of like just like a heater for everybody else. Like, he's really good at building up everyone around him. But when you actually get to see him go, and seeing him go with Gunther in particular, just these two guys just create absolute magic in the ring. It was really something special. Of course, by the end of the match, Gunther kicks the crap out of him, gets him locked in a sleeper, and won't let go, which leads to Damien Priest doing a run-in. Damien Priest gets in, and Gunther go to town on each other. And as they're beating the living crap out of each other, that is where the show ends for the night. As I recap it, I realize, the show had that third hour problem that every episode of Raw has, where that third hour just sort of drags a bit. But overall, it actually didn't feel quite as bad as say the last week's episode, which was really draggy and really slow. I feel like we got a lot more episode in, and it felt like a lot more got accomplished in the 3 hours than they did last week. And that is, again, without the ability to really change anything or move anything forward story-wise, because we're all sort of like pending the pay-per-view this week. And that is Raw. Just a quick couple words about Death Before Dishonor, which was also this weekend. And I was in Comic-Con for the whole weekend, so I did not get to watch it live. I got to watch it later. But that's the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. If you're not watching Ring of Honor, it's $10 a month for their app. And you get all of their pay-per-views for free included, as well as their entire library. If you like guys like... I was going to say Finn Balor, but I don't know that there's actually a lot of Finn Balor on there. But Sami Zayn was there. Kevin Owens, who was Kevin Steen back then, is there. Seth Rollins was there as... his name just went out of my head. Black. What was his name? Something Black. Kevin Black? Not Kevin Black. I can't believe I can't remember his name right now. In any event, there's, CM Punk was there, obviously. Tons of guys were in Ring of Honor. So, like, you get access to all this amazing content. And their PLEs, which is probably what they're closer to than pay-per-views, are generally pretty fantastic. And this week's was no exception. Diamante and Layla Hirsch had an amazing, who are probably two names who mean nothing to you if you don't watch Ring of Honor. but they had an amazing Texas death match that was just like just one of the best women's matches I've seen in a long time. There was a great Pure match. Pure is like got this like very MMA feel to it, but it was a fantastic match. Um, there was the main event was Mark Briscoe versus Roderick Strong. That was just breathtakingly fun. Just a really really great time. Um, yeah, the whole show from top to bottom was a blast. If you're just looking for a few hours to kill watching fun wrestling, do yourself a favor, spend $10. Go give it a look and watch that pay-per-view. You will not be disappointed. Um, and what else? We got the next episode of the podcast is going to be a very, very, very special one. I mentioned this. I mentioned it the other day. But again, like if you enjoyed the interview that I did with my buddy, um, with my buddy FJ DeSanto, we've got another one scheduled for tomorrow with Steve Orlando. And Steve Orlando is a comic book writer, expert, I don't know what I'm trying to say. He's an expert. He's an expert comic book writer. And he also wrote in the upcoming issues of DC Comics, there's going to be these little 2-page AEW comics. And he wrote all of them. And I managed to pick up all of them while I was at San Diego Comic-Con and get them signed by the wrestlers that they're about. And I'm going to be giving those away during my live stream of Dynamite on Wednesday night. So if you're listening to this and you don't listen to the live streams, do me a favor, come check out the live streams. I do it on Twitch and I do it over on YouTube as well as on Twitter. And if you come and hang out with us for the whole time, at the end of the show, I will give those away and you can get a signed comic that is signed by Swerve Strickland or Tony Storm or who else? Orange Cassidy, Britt Baker, Darby Allin. Yeah, they're super cool. So so that's what we got going on the rest of the week. And there's a video going up first thing Tuesday morning that is my predictions for what's going to happen at SummerSlam. So I hope you check that out. That'll be on the YouTube channel. And that is it for me. Thank you for listening. You can, of course, follow us here at Wrestling with Story on YouTube, or you can subscribe to us if you just want to listen to the audio version wherever finer podcasts are found, or by searching for Wrestling with Story with Josh Fialkov. It would be fantastic and so helpful if you were to rate and like and review the podcast. That is super, super helpful for us and makes a big difference. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Josh Fialkov. You can follow me on Instagram at Wrestling with Story. And I'm going to put up all the socials and all that stuff is all going to flash on the screen if you're watching the video version of this. If not, it's going to be in the comments. You can check out our amazing t-shirts and merch if you want to help support us and help us keep doing the content and making the money, because I do like making the money. And by I mean need to, so that we can keep making content for you guys to check out. And I think that is all she wrote. Thank you guys so much for listening. It is always a pleasure to talk to you about Raw. I will see you back here on tomorrow, or on Wednesday rather, for the Dynamite podcast, where we recap what goes on Dynamite. So I'll see you then. Thank you so much for listening. And of course, wrestling forever.